Good morning. I'm going to keep this very, very brief because I've got to dash out very, very soon. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the two videos that have been released. Obviously, the first one by Steve Drizin concerning basically, I got the impression that everybody that had written amicus briefs were quite happy to continue supporting Brendan, along with obviously Sex Raxman, present a video to present to the governor, Evers, and that was obviously a good thing, because obviously it was pretty shallow of the Supreme Court not to listen to Brendan's case. When was that? That was over a year ago, I think, about a year ago. So yes, we kind of thought at the time, you know, what on earth is going to happen next? What are Steve Drizin and Laura Nyrider going to do? Well, what they've been doing, obviously, partly what they've been doing is going all around the world, Edinburgh, Australia, and other places in between. I think down in London. I think, Jane, you saw them down in London. So they've been busy going here, there, and everywhere. And maybe one or two of us have thought, well, you know, you're talking about the case, but what are you actually going to do about the case? And in fairness, I'd have to say that I was one that was suggesting, you know, a little bit of criticism their way, which I would totally retract, because I think this latest move by them is absolutely brilliant. I had to change a couple of messages with obviously Tracy over there in Australia, and she was saying yes, they've been working on this for months. Because I asked why they hadn't immediately got in touch with Evers the moment he was elected, won the vote back in early January. I've got a few emails to and from Steve Drizin. You probably remember that back in, let's get it, yeah, on the 23rd of August, TikTok Manitowoc tweeted in Reddit, or it's in the Reddit, TikTok Manitowoc, this email that Kratz had sent to Tom Fallon, and Fallon's reply over the seating at the 7th Circuit Court hearing. And Kratz was desperate to insert himself into proceedings. He wanted a seat reserved for him. He wanted to take part in the moot court that they were going to have, you know, the practice for the hearing. And he also wanted to insert himself to the extent where he was saying that he thought that Brendan's sentence should be adjusted. Let's see if I can find the exact wording of what the email said. Third, oh, hold on a sec. Let's go back a step. He wrote, let's just read what the email said. Tom, first, I would like to attend the arguments in Chicago on Valentine's Day. So that was clearly the first three-panel hearing. Is there something I need to do to arrange seats? I'm quite certain Tom Fassbender wants to join me. Second, as the argument may be incredibly fact-specific, I am asking that Fassbender and I be invited to observe, participate in the mock argument I'm sure you intend to do at DOJ. I have to believe that almost nobody knows more about these two cases at the moment, with me just completing my book, and we just want to make sure that any precaution, or just that every precaution is taken with whomever is doing the argument, that they know the blind spots in the case. Third, I have every expectation that the state will prevail at this federal court and the conviction for Dassey will be maintained. Assuming that occurs, is there any thought for what DOJ intends to do with Dassey? In other words, my belief is that some adjustment to his sentence may be reasonable after you win the appeal. If that is to be considered, I very much want to be part of that process. Obviously, I have no official input that I can give, but respect to me and the 10-plus year process, recognizing that the outcome of these two cases will forever define my career. I at least want to be heard prior to the deal being cut. Thanks for your consideration. Okay, so I sent this to Steve Drizin, and I put I simply sent it to him, and I said, "Have you seen this already? Have you seen this already? This rather bizarre email?" And he put, "I don't think so. How did you get this?" Steve, it was posted in a Facebook page from Reddit. I'll try and get it to you. I found it. Reddit, TikTok Manitrock, comments, a few new emails to ponder. I then sent him Fallon's response. I then asked him a quick question because I was a bit unsure. I said, is the Sweaty Prize suggesting increasing or decreasing the sentence for Brendan? I also put, would you be able to tell us what you think about this email exchange? And Steve Drizin was quite funny. He put, not on the record. But he did carry on by saying he's not talking about increasing his sentence. And that was as far as my exchanges with Steve Drizin went on that matter. So I was quite pleased that I was able to, in effect, be the first one to alert him to that particular email. And, you know, he obviously did have thoughts about it, but wasn't able to share them. That's absolutely fine, Steve. The Kratz video. Very interesting. I have been banging on, I would say, for probably nearly a year now, but certainly ever since Linda K. Listening put the video in her channel. If you go to her channel, Linda K. Listening, and go to A Murder in the Park, I would hope that everybody will watch it. I know one or two people that haven't had time to watch it yet, so we can forgive them. But it is a must-see. It's very interesting, though, how Ken Kratz uses the Murder in the Park as his, he refers to it as being the birth of I can't remember the exact word he used. It was sort of an innocence, misleading of innocence, but basically what it was. There was this, truth misleading. The idea that that was when it first started. The idea that people could get together and petition for someone, and basically to get somebody out of prison who was guilty. And there's no doubt about it. What David Protest did was completely wrong. I think his ends did not justify the means. What he was trying to do, or what he had been trying to do for a long time, was to get the abolishment of the death penalty in Chicago. His way of doing it, although that is a noble crusade to go on, the abolition of death penalties throughout America should be high on people's agendas, because you can't rectify mistakes, and mistakes happen, as we see all the time. So noble though the cause was, the way he went about it, of course, was completely wrong. But of course, Ken Kratz fails to mention in his video that, of course, Old Story Simon confesses to the murder of the two people in the park by the swimming pool in Chicago, and therefore Anthony Porter is released straight away without even corroborating the confession that was coerced. But of course, you won't find that mentioned by Ken Kratz, the fact that it was a coerced confession, and not just of a severely challenged, underdeveloped 16-year-old who was quite happy to acquiesce to everything. You know, whatever they told Brendan, he did, or he repeated, or he said. He just went along totally with what they were getting him to do. There was zero resistance. This obviously, this is one of the things that the whole control question debate is about, the fact that his will was completely overborne. There's no dubiety about this. Everybody can see that. And isn't it interesting that, you know, as I say, there's Brendan, who, let's face it, is a big lad, but in terms of his sort of development, it's like he's still a child. As I say, just happy to go along and without any fight back at all. Old Story Simon is a grown adult who could have stuck up for himself, but because of the coercion, because of the threat to him, he made this confession. But you won't get that mentioned in Kratz's video. So anyway, I think if you haven't already watched Murder in the Park, definitely watch it. Ken Kratz, I knew all along, would be using this as an example of where people who are fighting for justice will be tarred with the same brush as David Protas and his students were tarred. You know, Kratz, that was back in 1999. We are now 20 years further on. Things have advanced tremendously. So anyway, one thing that was interesting, one thing I did like about Kratz's video, that is a little clip that he used of Pink Floyd, The Wall, and from the track Another Brick in the Wall. In fact, it's Another Brick in the Wall, part 2. Nope, it must be part 1. Yeah, part 1. So, very interesting that he should use Pink Floyd. I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan. I noticed that he's done a remake of that video, and the only thing I think he's changed is not using that bit of Pink Floyd when the dial is being dialed, when the phone is being dialed. And I would imagine it's because he realized that he's not actually allowed to use that clip. So he's redone it with that bit of music changed. I can't help thinking that he should have, let's do this. Let's see if I can find this. When we get to the end of the video, I'll pause that a moment. When we get to the end of the video, there is no doubt whatsoever as to what Ken Kratz's video is all about. This is also Pink Floyd. Do you recognize this one? Anybody recognize that one? Pink Floyd, Money. Yes, that is exactly what his video is about. It's about trying to sell his book. Yeah, Ken Kratz, absolutely despicable person. As Zarakozy mentioned yesterday, he blocked me, not because of that cartoon that I did, the one with the clown's feet, and it said, before you judge Ken Kratz, you try walking a mile in his shoes. That was actually me that did that one. Yeah, I quite like that one. I think the dude quite liked it as well. But he, as I say, he blocked me because I asked a question about Mike Holbach, and the grieving process could last days. And as I've said, yes, okay, that's pretty shallow. Asking Ken Kratz the question: Has Mike finished grieving yet? Because he said it might take a couple of days. So a bit of shallow sarcasm. The whole point of what I said was that this case in Soham, Ian Huntley and Maxine Carr, and the two missing girls, Holly Rolls and Jessica Chapman, was busted when Maxine Carr, who was actually the teacher for one of the girls, Ian Huntley was the caretaker at the school, Maxine Carr was one of the teachers. The press interviewed Maxine Carr, and she'd been given a card by one of the girls, and was saying about looking forward to next year, and she referred to one of the girls in the past tense, saying that she was such a nice girl, and at the time she was only a missing person. And immediately, of course, the press jumped on this, immediately alerted the detectives to say, you need to listen to this. This is most odd. And it ended up, obviously, with Ian Huntley being convicted of murder, and Maxine Carr, she got something like 3 years for assisting Ian Huntley in his despicable acts. So that's what I was alerting the sort of question to. As I say, my big question for Ken Kratz, one that he's never ever answered, is that you only have this coerced confession. Would it not have been brilliant had you had, for example, a computer that was Brendan's that had thousands of images of deranged, the sort of stuff that deranged people look at? Well, Ken, you did, but you chose not to use the computer that you said was Brendan's as evidence against him. That's the big question, Ken. Why didn't you use the computer against Brendan? That's all I've got time for. I'm going to have to dash off. We'll catch you guys soon. Thanks. Bye for now.